You know that feeling when you're stuck in decision paralysis? You go back and forth, overanalyzing every possible option like a million ways, terrified that if you pick the wrong one, you'll mess up your entire future. What if you make a choice and get trapped? What if you commit to something and then realize too late that something better was just around the corner? What if this one decision ruins your chance at the life you were meant to live? Yeah, I've been there too. And let me tell you, the fear of making the wrong decision is one of the biggest things keeping you stuck, not just in your business, but in your entire life. So today, you and I are going to be breaking it down. You're going to learn how to separate fear from intuition so you can make confident choices, why self-doubt isn't a stop sign, it's actually proof that you're growing, and the one mindset shift that will help you trust yourself even when the path feels unclear. By the end of this episode, you're going to feel lighter, clearer, and ready to take action without obsessing over what ifs or worst case scenarios. So grab your cozy socks, get under your favorite blanket, and let's dive in. Hey there, you just stumbled into the Anxious Creative Podcast, where overthinking turns into ahas, mess ups become magic, and anxious spirals, totally part of the process. I'm Dawn Bradley, your messy, imperfect host, here to help you, the recovering people pleaser, the perfectionist, to stop chasing the unachievable and start embracing the chaos. Spoiler alert, that's where the real magic happens anyway. So buckle up, friend, because we're about to have some laugh so hard till you cry moments, a few hard truths to help you grow, and naturally a little, or let's be honest, a lot, of oversharing. You ready? Let's dive in. So what the heck is the difference between fear and intuition? And I've always been so curious about how do people make such confident decisions when all these what ifs come up? And for a while in my life, I got really disconnected from my intuition. I'm a very intuitive person. It almost freaks me out sometimes where I'm like, how do I know these things? But what I've learned over time is how to distinguish what fear is in my body physically and what intuition is. And fear and intuition can feel identical in the moment, but they're not the same. And so if you're not sure if you're on the right path, you need to be able to really get into your physical body, which can feel really unsafe for a lot of us. But I want you to know that fear screams and intuition whispers. Fear is loud, it's anxious, and it's urgent. It wants you to do things right away. Intuition is calm, certain, and persistent. And so whenever you're faced with a decision that you need to make, I want you to ask yourself, am I afraid because I might fail? Or do I truly feel this isn't right for me? And for me, I can feel my fear in my chest. It makes my breathing tight. It makes me want to act right away. Where my intuition is a calm inner sense and knowing. And so here's a practical tip. If you feel paralyzed by the decision that you're facing in your life or business right now, get really quiet. Step away from the noise, the scrolling, the social media, asking other people's opinions, and just journal, take a walk, or do something that lets your thoughts settle. I used to just run really fast on the treadmill so that I couldn't really think and the looping would stop. Your intuition will always guide you, but you have to create a safe space to hear it. There's a time in my life where I knew what my intuition was saying, but I didn't want to listen to it. And so I kept the noise. I became a workaholic. I pushed further and further away from sitting with that quiet voice. But when I think about the time when I was moving to Calgary in 2014, and everyone thought I was nuts, and people warned me against it. Why would you leave a good business? And you had a house, and I was 30 or 31, and it's time to settle down in life, and it didn't feel right. I just felt like there was bigger and better things on the other side of my choice, even though I had no plan. I had no job when I got to Calgary. I had no idea what I was going to do. I knew no one, but I just had this inner knowing and this peace that everything was going to be all right. And even though there was fear in it of like, oh my gosh, what if it all goes wrong? What if I get totally embarrassed myself? I knew I had this knowing, but I also have had that knowing in the other direction where I've had to leave relationships where I didn't want to because I knew it was going to hurt. I wanted to avoid the pain, but this deep inner knowing kept directing me back. But in business, I've also taken risks, even when they didn't make sense, because that inner knowing, that intuition, I trusted that I would follow through. So know that self-doubt isn't a sign to stop. It's a sign that you're growing. I know you think confidence needs to come first, but it doesn't. Action breeds confidence through courageous and vulnerable action, not the other way around. You have to stop waiting to feel secure in order to take that step and that leap into the risk of the unknown. A risk wouldn't be a risk if it didn't have a risk, right? So self-doubt isn't proof that you're on the wrong path. It's proof you're stepping outside your comfort zone and you're growing. And just think of the whole gym analogy. Like, you have to be willing to push yourself and get uncomfortable in order to get stronger. Same thing when it comes to emotional intelligence of stepping out and growing in your business or taking a risk in your business. You have to get uncomfortable. So I want you to reframe the feeling. Instead of what if I fail, ask yourself, what if this is just proof that I'm leveling up? And also, every time you go into the what if spiral that goes downward into all the things that could go wrong, I want you to counteract that with the what ifs of it all went right. Because that's just as likely as a possibility, except for some reason, and I don't know the neurology of this, our brains are wired to think worst case scenario, but what if you also looked at the best case scenario? So keep a proof bank, a list of times you doubted yourself but succeeded anyway. Your brain needs evidence that you can do hard things. I also keep an intuition list of all the times that I intuitively think something, and then if and when it comes true or does happen, I put the date. It's a really cool thing to start seeing. One of these things that happened even in my life was I remember thinking about going to visit a friend. It was a new friend. We talked on the phone. I said something about we should hang out. She was like lived across the continent from me. And she's like, when? And I jokingly said this weekend. And she's like, oh my gosh, come. I'll pay for one way of your ticket. And I was like, this feels like I should do this, but I don't even know this person really well, but like we get along really well. And I just think I'm supposed to do it, but I'm just going to wait for a sign to say that I should. Or no, it wasn't that I waited for a sign. I booked my ticket. And then the next day I opened up my DMs and someone in her city was like, what are the chances you ever do classes here? I'd love to have you. And I was like, I'm coming there this weekend. I can do it. And the person hired me to come teach a class in their salon. I just trusted the process and learning to get back into trusting your intuition. It took me a long time. After being in a really abusive relationship where I didn't know what gaslighting was at the time. It wasn't this like big, like trendy word. I remember my therapist at the time explaining it to me and I had to Google it. But I lost touch with my intuition. I didn't trust myself anymore because I kept being told that I wasn't right or that I was misremembering things. And I got so disconnected from my intuition that I didn't trust my own thoughts, feelings, or urges. And so getting in touch with those, like that inner knowing, that inner urge, that thing that your internal compass has taken me time. And it's taken trusting myself in the little things. What do I want for dinner tonight? How do I want my day to look? Do I want to take this client on or not? Do I want to say yes to coming in on my day off? And really slowing down, and instead of appeasing what I think the other person wants me to say, slowing down and checking in, what do I want to do or hear? So here's a mindset shift that's going to actually help you trust yourself more, even when you feel a little bit lost. There's no such thing as a wrong decision. The only decisions that teach you something. And I really believe the only wrong decision is not making one, because by having inaction, you actually choose something. By not choosing, you're choosing something. Too many people stay stuck in waiting for certainty, but I need you to know that certainty comes from action, not thinking. And it's funny because as I'm recording this episode for you, I'm even realizing myself, I'm so scared to make some decisions in my life because I'm fearful of experiencing pain that I've experienced before, like the pain of having to rebuild my clientele, the pain of having to start a life over, the pain of losing clients, of losing friends. Like those sorts of things can be so painful that I want to go on the sidelines of my life sometimes and not be in the game. But the reality is the person I've become through the things that I've gone through, even though I've made strong decisions, even though I've made really definitive decisions, I can see in my life that there's always a way to correct course. There's always choice. I've never been trapped into anything. If you're hung up on decisions you've made in the past that you think are wrong or bad, or you're beating yourself up over, know your past self made the best decision they could with the knowledge that they had. Your future self will do the same. And I know how much you're investing in yourself right now. So instead of asking yourself, what if I make the wrong choice? Ask, what's the next best step I can take? Ooh, give me chills. I needed to hear it. Focus on the small, immediate actions instead of needing the whole path laid out. This is huge. This is like when I moved to Calgary. I took a giant leap of faith. I sold my house. I packed up my business, got my pup in the car with me, and drove 6 hours to a new city where I knew no one, and I had no plan. And instead of going into the spirals of what ifs, of what's the next step, what am I going to do, how am I going to make money, I knew I was going to be okay, and I trusted that. I believed in it. I believed in my ability to make it happen, and I knew I'd be fine. And I felt that there was bigger and better things on the other side of that decision, despite what others were saying. And if I listened to others' opinions, if I had sought out and outsourced what I should do to other people, I would have fallen under what their comfort zones were telling them to do. Even though I wasn't 100% sure it would all work out, I confidently chose to move in that direction. Trusting yourself is not about having all the answers. It's about being willing to take the next step, even when you're scared. You don't have to have the next 10 steps because you don't know how the next step is going to land. Doubt doesn't mean stop. It means you're on the edge of growth. All right, friend, here's the truth. There's no such thing as a wrong decision. The only mistake you can make is staying stuck, waiting for certainty that will never come. Clarity comes from action, not overthinking. So the next time you're caught in decision paralysis, stop asking, what if I fail? Or what if it all goes wrong? And start asking, what's the next best step I can take? Because your future self isn't waiting for you to be perfect. They're just waiting for you to take one step forward. You've got this. Trust yourself. Take the leap. And remember, you can always course correct. And if you're still feeling stuck, come hang out with me over on Instagram at Dawn Bradley. I'd love to hear about your bold moves you're making. And if you want to dive even deeper into getting out of decision paralysis and going from overwhelmed to profitable, click the link in my show notes and get free access to my masterclass, or go to dawnbradley.com/free class. And next week's episode, you are not going to want to miss, because I'm going to share with you the lazy entrepreneur's guide to making more money with less effort. I'm going to follow up on how to be lazy and successful, and dive into why doing less can actually make you more money, how to cut the fluff and focus on the tasks that move the needle, move forward, and simple shifts that make success feel easy without burnout, because you deserve it. So make sure you're subscribed, and if you love this episode, screenshot it and share it to your stories and tag me. And as always, stay weird, stay messy, and most importantly, stay unapologetically you. See you next week.